Hi everyone, welcome to the grand finale of drawing a residential building permit set. I'm Chris, your architect guide from the UK, and today we're going to be putting the finishing touches on your permit documentation so you can hit submit with total confidence. We've travelled quite the journey together from that very first import to building a complete professional permit set. And now it's time to wrap things up with these three final steps. Adding in some technical documentation like typical construction details that show the architectural intent. I'll walk you through importing PDFs and tweaking them as needed. Customizing your title block so every detail, redirect and note looks clean and organized. Sharing your permit set for one last round of review with your stakeholders, your boss, your client, whoever's signing it off, so they can drop in online comments and annotations before submission. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a polished, complete permit set, ready to send off for approval with minimal friction or revisions. Throughout this course, we've been working in Rayon Design, the browser-based platform that takes you all the way from the first sketch to professional documentation. If you haven't yet, set up your free account at rayon.design and grab the free permit set template linked below. Follow along by tailoring the template to your own project, and if you like some personalized guidance, you can book a one-to-one demo using the link in the description. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our future tutorials. All right, let's finish strong and let's dive in. Okay, so our permit set is nearly complete. The final step is to include any required technical documentation, which can obviously vary based on your location or your project type. It might include things like LEED certification, compliance protocols, or reference case studies from previously approved projects. As an example, I'm going to be adding some fire-resistant design details from a reference PDF. Okay, this is how we left the set last time. So we've got our front cover, our legend, our site plan, our existing and proposed plans, sections and elevations, and now our window and door schedules. And now I'm going to add in some construction details. So these are really there to illustrate the design intent behind the building, and your local jurisdiction will have your specific requirements in terms of these details. So I'm going to show you two different ways of doing that. First is to import standard PDF information. So I can add a new page. So just like before, we can add a new A3 page, position that amongst our set. I'll just copy over the drawing title page and I can go to menu, to import, and then PDF. And I can find my document here. And then I can find a breakdown of all the pages that are relevant within the document. And I'm just going to choose a standard detail from this set as an example, and I can press import. It will then take me to a separate import window, and then I can see that PDF page there. As this drawing isn't to scale, it's a PDF page with some information on it. I'm just going to put in 1:1 as the scale, so then that will come out of the size of the document. I'll press continue, and then I can pick an insertion point on my page. You can see there, that's inserted that PDF document with our standard detail that was included within the PDF. What I can do though is alter that PDF. So say for example, I wanted to remove the titles, for example, it's as easy as that. Just to edit these things down, I can group that and adjust the PDF as I see fit. And this can obviously be used for things like standard details that meet your jurisdiction requirements. The alternative is to draw those details yourself. Here, for example, I've drawn some example construction details. So this lives on a separate canvas. So over here we've got construction detail canvas. And these are just some standard details that I've used before on projects that I brought in as an example. So relevant to this project, for example, where we've got our pitch roof, we have a sort of standard roof detail here that shows the tiles, that shows the interface with the wall, the gutter, and we can very easily just bring these onto the sheets to give the planning jurisdiction an idea of our not only visual aspect, but actually the sort of material and building quality. So I can jump back to the paper canvas, create a new sheet. Again, we go for a new page. We set that at A3, align it nicely with the rest of our drawing title sheets, copy across the drawing sheet, and then we can go to the layers tab and we'll go to new view. And there we're going to find the construction details canvas and add that in. So we want to be able to set our scale. So maybe I'll set these at 1:20, for example. And then again, I can command and drag, and I can drag my window, my crop region down. And again, I could easily copy across one of my notes. So aesthetically, all the notes look exactly the same. Typical roof eaves detail 1:20. So again, we have that as an example, and very easily we can add those to the sheets. So the drawn elements of your permit set are now complete, and there are just 2 more final steps before submission. The first is to review the set in detail, making sure all the information is consistent and compliant across all title blocks and sheets. A great way to do this efficiently is by using smart title blocks with metadata linked to your drawing. In this segment, I'll show you how to create your own title blocks, either by customizing Rayon's pre-made blocks or starting your own from scratch. Let's dive in. We'll make sure that your sheets are perfectly organized and submission ready. Okay, so I've just spent a little bit more time refining those down. So we've got our PDF imported detail, we've got our drawn details. I've also imported a number of images to give an idea of the mood, materiality, some interior sort of feeling of the spaces, and then a rear cover for that document set. The one thing we haven't spoken about is the title sheets. So the title sheets currently, I've just been importing a standard block, but what about if I wanted to customize those? I wanted to create my own or adjust the existing block, for example. So I'm going to show you that now. So I want to add a new page, another A3 page, and I'm going to put that over here. Now let's just have a look at our standard title block, what they include. So our standard title block tells you about the name of the studio, so the company that's producing the information, any contact information, the name of the drawing, key plan, project note, and then we have the sort of key information, so about the project, who it's been drawn by, the date, the scale, and the project or drawing number. So those are those kind of key elements to include. I'd also have something like a revision table, so when the drawing was issued and whether it was revised, so A, B, C, D, E. We normally code those by letter. And this is really a shortcut to all the key information on that drawing. You could also normally have some terms and conditions at the bottom of that drawing, so any legal requirements that you have across your drawing about copying or scaling. But it really is kind of part of your formal documentation as part of your role as an architectural designer, having that drawing title sheet set up. So to create your own, we could do one of two things. One could be to copy this down and unblock it. So this is one of the standard ones that live inside the Rayon block library. And I could unblock, which basically separates all the elements out. And you'll see now that they revert back to standard shapes and standard text elements. So we could basically adjust the layout, the contents of all of these things, or we could draw one afresh. So again, I could, let's say we delete this for a second, I could draw the framework that I want to as part of my documentation. So say I'm happy with that space on the right hand side, I might want to import my company logo, for example. So again, I can go to import, I can do image, I can find my logo for my practice, Studio Chris Simmons, which is here. Obviously I can make sure that my guidelines are all sort of set up as a sort of first point, so making sure that my offsets are set. So let's say 0.8. My framework set up. I can obviously include title, find the font that sits fully with my logo. Could obviously put things like the company address, things like contact information, and obviously separate that off. I do like to have a key plan in there as well. I think that's a good idea. Now if we start from the bottom, I'd have something like project name, project number, date, drawn by, and drawing number. And then up here, I'd probably have revisions. So we can then use our smaller subheading here. I'm going to add a series of lines, and the drawing number I'm going to have as a larger element so it's visible, it's easy to see. Okay, so that's a very basic drawing title sheet set up. And now I want to create a block out of it. So I'm just going to have to get rid of my guidelines. I'm going to select everything apart from the actual page that it sits on, right click onto that block. Now I can think about the metadata that sits within that block, which allows me to adjust things. So if you see here on our existing title blocks, if I click onto there, you can see these custom properties which live inside the block. So I can change things like the scale or the template or the drawing name. So with that as a block, I can now add instance properties to the sort of metadata. So if I click on it, I can go over to the custom properties, which lives on the right hand side, and I can add a property for each of these titles. So project name, that's obviously a text element, that number, date, drawn by. So you can see there that I've copied across those instances, those elements which I want to be able to adjust to the instance properties. And now when I go back into the block, I can assign each of these subheadings, so where that text will appear, as those instances. So I can double click on here, and where my text is selected, I just go to add variable. I'll find my instance, and then I can find my project name. Press OK. That will disappear for the minute because it's not filled in, and then I can do exactly the same for the rest. Instance, project number, dates, drawn by. Okay, so they would have disappeared, and then we can go back over to the instance property, and then we can basically write in what we want. So project number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Project name, countryside, house. Date 01/09/2025, drawn by, so that's normally an initial, which is my initials. Drawing title, details, and then drawing number 1, 2, 3, 5, X, Y, Z. So you can see there I've kept the format, so the text style, the size that I set previously, but now that's able to be filled in, and that means that if I was to then copy this title sheet across, so say we'll get rid of that standard block and put my new title block in, I can change those parameters to ABC 1, 2, 3 and project number to 7, 8, 9, 10. And then if I just go back to there, you can see that my original has not changed. So basically that metadata allows those things to be edited, so you can fill in your block as and when you see fit. And obviously that can be used for all the elements, so the revisions, we could have those as metadata, and any of the other sort of things that you want to include on your title block, as long as they are set as instance properties within the metadata, we can adjust those when we want to. With that block drawn, our title sheet block, I can obviously name that. So I could call that SCS, so Studio Chris Simmons A3 title block. So with that block completed, that can live within my block library. So we can find it here, for example. You can see there, that could then be placed within any of the sheets. The other great thing is that once this is set up, you can share it amongst your teammates, for example. So, you could go through, you could set up your standard title sheets for A3, A1, whatever size paper that you want. They will live in your library and then you can share them. So it's a really helpful thing to get at a sort of basic level set up. Alternatively, you could bring in your own block library. So say you were migrating from AutoCAD where you have your title sheets already set up. As long as they're a DWG, you could import those into Rayon and then set them as a block and then update the metadata elements as I've just shown you. You can also use all the pre-built templates in the Rayon block library. So I'll just show you again in libraries, in title blocks. We have a whole array of pre-built title blocks from A3, A4, A2, A1 sizes. And they all have a variety of different sort of styles, different elements to them. It's easy as that. We can just drag them in, different spaces for different things, different pre-made annotations, north points, and these are waiting for you to update them yourselves. So if you want to, you can go in, you can override the elements in there, or you can unblock them and then update the metadata as you see fit. There are even title blocks specifically for things like details, for example. So these are pre-built title blocks with spaces for those close-up details. And again, you can adjust and update as you see fit, customize it to your own liking. And that sits within that block library of 10,000 different blocks that we've been showing you. Or as we've done now, you can just create your own from scratch and go from there. Make it personal to your firm, add all those legal requirements that you need to, and make it completely personalized to what you want it to be. This is it. We're ready to share the set with other stakeholders to get that final confirmation before submitting our permit. Rayon makes this extra easy by being an online, web-based multi-user tool where you can collaborate with others directly on your drawings. So that's everything done. I want to show you how you can export it, how you can share it, where we go next. So first of all, we could look at a preview. So the preview basically takes each page and presents it back to you. So this will then appear as a presentation. You can see here, it's just showing you those in the order that we've set them out. So our front cover, our legend, we've got our site plan, our elevations, our plans, our existing and our proposed elevations, our proposed sections here and here. And then we've got our window schedule with all our keys, our key tags, those example details, and our mood board images, and our final page. Okay, so to share the model, there's a variety of different ways you can do this. So we can click on share, which is up in the top right hand corner. So I can invite someone with their email. So I could invite my business email, for example, and you can decide whether they're an editor, an admin, or a viewer. So set that to viewer, for example. So if you're sending it to a client or a collaborator, and you can do invite, that invitation then goes to their email and will be pending. You can adjust whether they're an editor or viewer after that point as well. Okay, so I've received that email within my business email inbox. I can go to sign up. So whoever's going to be reviewing your documentation needs to create an account. So I can easily create an account. Okay, so this is my new workspace, and I can go to shared with me, so models, and I can see the project that's just been shared by my other account. As a reviewer, I can then come in here. I can click on the different elements, but I can't edit them. So that would need me, to be able to change that to editor. You can see there you are in viewer mode. You can ask to edit. So in this viewer mode, I can measure. So I've got a tool that will give me measurements. Obviously this is the paper space. I can do areas. So say I wanted to check an area of something, I can do that very easily. I can comment. So say for example, I am the project leader, for example, I can write a comment. Can we check the build up of the existing roof? And then that will leave that little tag. It identifies who it is, and then when you click on it you can see the text, and then someone else can add a reply, so whoever else is in the model. I can even add some fun emojis if I want. The other thing I can do is annotate. So you can see here there's a little pen tool. So for example, if I wanted to indicate a change that I wanted to make visually, for example, I could add that onto this drawing here. You know, say we wanted to replicate the dark horizontal and vertical banding on the dormer, I can clearly communicate that on the drawing, and then I could add a comment against it saying, can we replicate the timber banding on the dormer? So instead of having to come out, instead of having to mark up the PDF, for example, or even print and mark that up, I can do that all in one application. And now coming back into my original account, I'll take a look at my project. And if I go to the left-hand side over here, comments, I can then see those comments that other me has implemented. You can see them highlighted on my drawing, for example, and then you can see the text listed out on the sidebar. You can see those annotations that were added. And if I click on here, I can then provide a response. Okay, no problem. We'll check that out and come back to you. Yes, we will update. So you start that dialogue all within the tool, and then I could go back into the drawing and make those amends. Alternatively, I can also share a public link. So if I click on here, public link, I can copy that, paste that into another window, and that lets me look at the things, but without editing them. If you're sending it to a client, it might be better to send it as a presentation. So we make sure that that's clicked on. That will give me a link. So again, I can copy that, I can paste that in my window, and this gives me that close-up view, slide by slide, of each of my presentation pages. It's great quality. It means that I don't have to send a Dropbox or anything like that. The clients can review it straight away. And if I want to, I can update it as I go. So if you see there, if I came out of it, there's this little update button, which means that it then rereads, re-uploads to that link. So it's always going to be up to date when you tell it to be. So those are the really smart ways that Rayon allows you to export, to share your model. But you can export in the traditional way. So if you wanted to export as a PDF, once your sort of final reviews were done, so we just go down to export, we go to PDF, and we can export pages separately. So each one of those 16 pages that we've created, we could separately export 1 or 2 if we wanted to, or we can export all of them. So you can see there, we can then choose whether it's a PDF or a PNG image file, the range of the pages, the resolution, so the quality of the image. We can obviously change the name. Then we can export. We can then choose our location. And then we can just check our desktop where we saved it and open our PDF. And there it is, exactly as we want it. So site plan, our elevations, existing and proposed plans, our window schedules, our details, and our final sheets. So hopefully you can see there's a whole variety of ways to allow people to view, to comment, and to finally export all that work that you've produced. That's a wrap for this lesson. You've now added the final touches, those technical details, a polished title block, and one last stakeholder review, bringing your permit set to completion and ready for submission with confidence. Remember, everything that we built together was done in Rayon Design, the browser-based platform that takes you from your first sketch through to that professional documentation. If you haven't already, grab your free permit set template linked below and start tailoring it to your own projects. If you'd like a more personalized guidance, you can always book a one-to-one demo through the link in the description. In our next video, we'll wrap up the entire course with a dedicated outro, so be sure to check that out. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our future tutorials. Great work finishing this lesson. I'll see you in the course outro.